Okay, I think that was less than a couple seconds. Next, we have OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. And OSHA actually has two meanings. The Occupational Safety and Health Act, the law that was created at the federal level to develop this set of rules, also imposed a responsibility on the federal government to create and maintain the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So OSHA also refers to the regulatory agency called OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So depending on what you're talking about, OSHA is the law and OSHA is the regulatory agency. So what does OSHA do? They are responsible for providing safe and healthful working conditions. Safe and healthful working conditions. So it is the employer's duty to furnish each employee with employment and a workplace free of recognized hazards causing or likely to cause death or serious harm. And this is always a bit of a gray area, and you have to look at court cases and precedent to determine some of the details of what is really the employer's responsibility. If there's a falling hazard, you put up a guardrail. That's a pretty straightforward type of thing. And you don't let people use a tall, high staircase without a guardrail until the staircase is done with the guardrail in place. You can't say, well, we were getting to it, we've been slowly building those stairs. Now employees are using those stairs, and by the end of next month we would have had that railing there. No, that's not okay. But what if there's a step that's coming loose and you put in a work order and somebody trips on the loose step and the work order got put in today because it was reported this morning, and somebody trips later that afternoon or the next morning, and you've got a work order for somebody to come in on Friday? You don't have much of a case that you did something intentionally neglecting a hazard. So what is reasonable? A day to get it fixed? A week? A month? Well, it depends on what's going on. I mean, if you've got a step that's coming a little bit loose versus a step that is about to break and somebody might fall through the stairs, yeah, you got to block off those stairs. You can't let anybody use them if they're dangerous. And again, the employers have, in some cases, a difficult challenge of deciding how much is enough and how much is not enough when it comes to providing the necessary workplace repairs, maintenance, supplies, equipment, design that makes a safe working environment. So the employer is also responsible for complying with occupational safety and health standards set forth in the law, meaning you have to follow everything in this OSHA Act or law. And employees, on the other hand, have duties under OSHA that require them to comply with those standards and all rules, regulations, and orders. Now, what it doesn't say there, but is important to keep in mind, employees can't be mind readers and are not responsible to read the OSHA laws. They're responsible to be following the rules upon which they have been trained. So the employer is responsible to train an employee before that employee is put to work in any area that they're going to be performing any work duties. So if they're going to be working in the machine shop, they need to be trained on machine shop safety according to OSHA rules before they start work. They're going to be out in the field working around plants that have been sprayed with pesticides. They need pesticide worker training before they start their first day of work, etc., etc. So there are lots of provisions or specific rules that deal with agriculture within OSHA that deal with things like temporary labor camps. These labor camps are places where migrant workers will live temporarily while there's work in that area. And a lot of workers in agriculture move with the work. They go from place to place where the work is. Once they're finished with that work, they go to a different area and they're bused to someplace else. And so they're living in these migratory labor camps. And there's less of the labor camp type living than there used to be, but it still happens. And there are lots of people that are in that situation. And so these temporary labor camps require certain rules be followed under OSHA. ROPS, you should know that acronym, the Tractor Rollover Protection Devices. And there are specific rules on that. Guarding of field farm equipment. Guarding is when you put something around a moving part so that you don't get somebody sucked in. And many people over the years have died because their jacket or the collar to their hoodie, the little string that you can tie your hoodie on in wet, windy conditions, it gets caught in something that's spinning and it sucks you in. And before you can even deal with it, boom, you've got a head injury and you're dead. Or you have your arm literally ripped off. It can be serious. So you need to guard field equipment. In agriculture, probably the number one piece of equipment is the power takeoff or PTO unit on a tractor or anything connected to that PTO. Very, very dangerous piece of equipment that has killed many workers over the years. Storage of anhydrous ammonia. Anhydrous ammonia is used as a refrigerant in coolers and in cooling tubes, produce cooling operations. It's also used as a fertilizer. So it's used extensively in agriculture. Field sanitation rules, that is something that goes across the line with food safety and the FDA and the USDA. So OSHA and the FDA and the USDA kind of blur together in certain areas of safety, and this is one of them, field sanitation. So that means, no eating lunches in the furrows. You've got to leave the field. You've got to have proper sanitation facilities, meaning bathrooms. You've got to be able to wash your hands with clean water after you use the bathroom. And those bathrooms have to be located at a reasonable distance from the work area. And there can be sanitation issues dealing with animals that might encroach on the field, etc., etc. Hazard communication. Now, pesticides are under, in California, the Department of Pesticide Regulation, California Department of Pesticide Regulation. But there are many different hazard communications that fall under the jurisdiction of OSHA. If it's not pesticides, there are lots of things that could be hazards. Maybe it's a hard hat area. Maybe there is noise, ear issues. So you have to wear ear protection or eye protection in that work area. Maybe you're a pedestrian walking across, or a worker who is walking, and you're walking across an area where forklifts might travel. And so there needs to be signage and maybe paintings on the floor and whatever to try to warn anybody walking that this is a forklift area. Keep head up, eyes open, pay attention. And there are lots and lots and lots and lots of things that could fall under hazard communication. How do you make sure people know when they're in a given work area the most critical of the safety precautions you must take when working in that area? Cadmium usage, that's something we don't get into too much here, but certainly cadmium is a material that can be highly toxic in certain operations. Logging operations, that's a forgotten piece of agriculture for many people in the Central Coast. We don't think about logging. You think about logging when you're in Northern California or other regions of the country. Logging is agriculture. Logging is one of the massive wings of agricultural operations that we often forget about. The other one we often forget about is fisheries. Fisheries is agriculture. So all those people out doing the longline fishing or whatever you're doing, they fall under the category of agriculture. What about exemptions? Immediate family of the farm employer. Spoken about that already. 10 or fewer non-family workers within the past 12 months. So if you're a really tiny postage stamp operation, to have 10 or fewer people who aren't your family, immediate family, I don't mean your third cousin twice removed, but immediate family, parents and children and spouses, that's pretty small operation, and you are exempt from some of the rules. And it doesn't mean you're exempt or you can do anything in a non-safe way. It just means that the rules are a little bit different and you can do things a little differently. It's a little looser when you have such a small operation. In California and Oregon, on the other hand, any establishment that hires workers for hand labor in fields is covered by the field sanitation standard, which covers quite a bit of safety issues in the field, and doesn't matter. You hire one person, you're paying your family member. Field sanitation applies, period. There is no exemption for that in California and Oregon. Not sure what other states, but certainly those are two of them. I think this is a good time for another quick break.